Good morning, Moto America fans. This is Paul Carruthers, and this is the newest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I'm joined, as always, by Sean Bice. Sean, actually, the good morning thing sort of works today because it's bright and early on, what are we, Thursday morning? And we've got Kyle Wyman as our guest today, and he's also I guess I don't know what they call that time zone, but he's on the time zone that's like an hour ahead of me and 2 hours less than you. So it's like 7 in the morning for me, 8 in the morning for him, and 10 in the morning for you. So we're kind of scattered all around.
Yeah, but if you remember that song from Aladdin, and I think Hannah Wyman would, because I think she might have played the princess or something in Disney, but we're all under the same big sky. So
Oh my God. That was a stretch, but it is Christmas time, so I guess I'll let you have it.
yeah, absolutely. No, this is cool. We haven't had Kyle on in a while, but he's always a good conversationalist. We can throw about basically any question at him that comes up, and he'll answer it with thought and interest. So it's good stuff.
You know what's funny is talking to Kyle before we started the show, he was giving a shit about doing weather reports. And
Yeah.
it's funny because of all this shit I get about the podcast, it's that we talk too much about the weather. So even though I'm talking about the weather right now, we're not going to talk about the weather. How's that?
Yeah, I know. We can't help it. It's like the thing you do when somebody's in the complete other side of the country. You kind of want to know what's going on over there. So
Yeah, but we could just come to the conclusion that your weather sucks and mine doesn't and move on.
it's actually not too bad right now. It's a little bit warmer anyway. We haven't had
Ah!
no.
All
That's true.
right.
Yeah,
How
can't help it.
about what else is going on besides the weather, Sean?
Well, obviously we got Christmas coming up, so that's pretty cool. I'm hoping that people are out there buying tickets now that the tickets are on sale on the website. And the other thing that's cool, I don't know if we've done this in the past, maybe we have, but I've certainly paid attention to it. Mike Crosby said if you've camped around in the past, your camping spot is saved from the year before, so that when you go in there, you can get the same exact spot. So you can have like you're claiming rights to a certain plot of land at any track and keep it going for years. I guess it's kind of like, I guess, a little bit the way we are in our paddock, although we do move some people around with the teams based on where they finish up the year before. But it's nice that people know they've got that same rock that was in the small of their back when they're tent camping before they'll have the next year too. So I'm sure that's comforting to them.
Yeah, we should do something like whoever drinks the most beer in the campsite gets to move up a spot or something. Give them some like reward system for being out there and drinking beer all night.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
All right, let's have a chat with
Yeah, let's get them on.
Kyle. He's out in Arizona. He's going to tell us where and why in a minute. But just to review, Kyle was finished third in the King of the Baggers Championship. I know he wishes he did better, but he actually did. If you look at the results, he won more races than anybody. He won 3 of the 7 races. He had one DNF and one non-start, which I don't want to talk to him about because he'll get all pissy with us. But he had the one non-start, so 2 non-finishes, and he was minus 12 points at the end of the championship season to Tyler O'Hara, with his brother Travis wedged in between there, and that battle went obviously all the way to the final round at New Jersey Motorsports Park. So it was a great season of King of the Baggers racing, and Kyle was always at the front. And like I said, usually won unless he had a technical issue or something else going on. But that championship actually is going to have more rounds this year, which I think Kyle's going to enjoy, and we'll talk to him about that in a minute. In addition to the King of the Baggers, he did 6 Superbike rides, and that was highlighted by a podium in race 2 at Road Atlanta, and that was actually the Tytlers team's first Superbike podium, so that was kind of cool. He kind of jumped in there and gave them that right away, and we like to see those guys enthused because they're a cool new team, and they're obviously spending a lot of money and doing a lot of work to compete at the Superbike level. So that was awesome to see Kyle do that for them. And I think he ended up like 14th in the championship based on just those 6 rides. So I think it kept him busy. He was at every race because obviously him and Hannah traveled around the country. They've got a 5th wheel. And so I know he was probably a little bit bored at the races that he didn't get to race in, but at least those 6 Superbike rides kept him a little busy at some of them. So anyway, let's talk to Kyle. Kyle, tell us, first of all, how are you and where are you?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm actually in Lake Havasu at a hotel, getting ready to do a second day of testing at the proving grounds, Harley Davidson proving grounds, their test facility up here. So yeah, I'm just doing some coaching, a little bit of travel, trying to kind of stay on top of things, try to consolidate my life a little bit. I've been spread out across the country for the last few years. So yeah, just trying to work on that and get some testing going for next year.
So the testings with Harley.
Yeah.
And where did you say that's also at the proving grounds, or the instructions at the proving grounds?
That's the testings at the proving ground. So Harley has their private test facility that's kind of in conjunction with Chrysler and Tesla out here. So a portion of the grounds is a road course, and that's Harley's own road course that they built. And it's like their handling track for their product, but we're using it to kind of get a little head start on our testing for next year. Just working on some throttle calibration and things to understand the new bike and get things going.
So that's a 2-day deal?
Yeah, yesterday and today. So
and Travis is there.
Our belt. Yeah, Travis and I both working on stuff yesterday and got everything done we wanted to on day one, and did some video shooting for marketing also. So we've got the new paint scheme already done, and it's still 2022. So we're way ahead of the game at this point.
Now, Travis was gone for a long time, including going to Australia. Did he come back with an accent and a newfound love for beer?
No, I was wondering. I saw him yesterday for the first time since then. So yeah, he was over there for like 27 days or something.
Yeah, I think he said he was gone a month total or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long stint. That's more than I want to do at this point over there. So yeah, him and Cody, and I'll see Cody tonight once we're all driving back to Vegas tonight, and we got a champ school starting at Vegas tomorrow morning. So we're jumping all over the place, and it'll be cool to have the three of us hanging out again this week.
That's cool, Kyle, that you're out there, but yet Harley is too. That's interesting for a company that's in Milwaukee and could go various places, but it kind of works out for you to have that situation in that setup. So that must be pretty good to not have to go too far to get things taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm actually living in New York, so we moved back to New York.
Right.
So we don't have a kind of West Coast home base anymore. So yeah, that chapter's closed. We spent 6 years living in Tucson, Arizona, and now we're back in New York. I still got the membership out at the track outside Tucson at Indy Motorsports Ranch.
Yep.
So kind of bouncing back and forth. I store my toy hauler there during the winter so I can have like a little bit of a winter escape when I need it. So it works out.
Well, that's good to understand that, because I wasn't sure. I know you'd been back and spent some time in New York, but I didn't think that that was the plan. Was there a reason that you decided to come back? Is it because you're a New Yorker at heart and felt more comfortable back home, or what was that all about?
Yeah, I mean, that's home. We spent time out in Arizona, so we could, at least for me, kind of, that's where I wanted to be based to build my race team.
Yeah.
And it helped having Indy in our backyard. And we spent so much time at that racetrack over the last, 6 or 7 years. And yeah, we're just kind of moving back home where family is, and, trying to be flexible so we can travel and go back to the warm weather when we want to, but home base is back in New York.
That's good. So one thing I don't know, and I don't know how many fans actually know this, so I want to ask you. Of course, we refer to you. You are a factory Harley Davidson rider, but what's the nature of what that means? Do you have a contract with Harley Davidson? Are you considered to be an employee? Is this contract, if there is one, a set amount of time and it has to be renewed? Can you share any of that with us?
Yeah, it's a contract. I'm a contractor. I'm not an employee. But I'm contracted by the motor company directly actually through KWR. If we want to get technical, it's, you know, Kyle Wyman Racing is still the business entity that does business with Harley Davidson. So that contract includes me and my chief mechanic, Dave Hopkinson. So we kind of come as a package deal. And it's been cool to have Dave join this program after he worked with me 2 seasons in Superbike. And that's the deal. You know, we're pretty much year to year right now, but, you know, I feel pretty good about our long-term commitment to racing.
Yeah, it's funny with Dave. I mean, Dave's British and he's done a lot over in England as well in various series, but the guy's got such enthusiasm. And I love the fact that he's all in on this King of the Baggers thing and these Harleys and trying to make them fast. And he just has this joy in his eye. And when you talk to him about what he's doing, so he's certainly not out of his element. I mean, he's embraced this completely, this American big twin idea, wouldn't you say?
He certainly has. we Yeah, we're in a great spot. We really enjoy what we're doing because, you know, everybody dreams to have the facilities available to them and go racing that we are, you know, in this position to have. So, you know, being able to be at the pointy end of development of a factory effort, basically with Superbike rules on maybe an unorthodox platform, but it's pretty incredible what you know, how I can ride this motorcycle at this point and what we can get out of it, you know, utilizing all the facilities and resources that Harley Davidson provides for us.
Now, I don't want to say that the Harley deal was a career saver for you, but I know that being a team owner, give me that slide look.
You don't want to say that?
But I did. Being
Sorry, guys.
Being a team owner, I know and anyone that's done it's a difficult thing. Being a team owner and the racer on the team is like takes that to another level. You've done both now. I mean, it's got to be like refresh. I don't think refreshing is a word, but it's got to just be like this weight off your shoulders to just be able to worry about what you're doing as a motorcycle racer instead of all that other stuff that went with being a team owner.
Yeah, I mean, you could say career saving, not in the sense that it normally would be used, like, you know, my career was over if they hadn't come in, you know, like that's not the case, but they definitely, like, I've thought of it in the context that they like rescued me from my situation because I'm so deep, so far down the line with a Superbike program. Like 6 years into that, I got a semi, I got all this stuff. I'm like, holy crap, I am in this. And you know, it's going to take something. Obviously, my ultimate goal was to be a factory Superbike rider and get that some sort of opportunity to that level. And, you know, that hadn't happened yet. And when the bagger stuff came up, I just thought of it as a cool side project. I never thought that it would be a full-time deal. And now it really is. And, you know, obviously the compensation's good and the company really stands behind me and takes care of me and listens to me. And I've been kind of a leader in this program since the inception because, you know, when they first started, none of them had gone racing. So I got to be leaned on for operations and understanding certain processes and going racing. So it feels a little bit like my baby, you know, this team and effort because of how much I've been able to influence it from day one from a structural and operational standpoint. So it's rewarding on many levels, you know, beyond the fact that I get to show up and ride and not be, you know, accountable for, you know, the operations of the team, but being able to kind of lead and consult from that aspect. And it's been great. It's truly a dream scenario. It really is. And now we have 14 races next year. So it's a proper championship and it's everything I could ask for.
Well, we'll talk about next year in a minute, but do you still have all that stuff? Like, do you still have semis and all the stuff that came with being a team owner, or is that gone?
Yeah, I do. I still have the semi. I'm actually getting a little bit of work done to it this winter just to fix up a couple things structurally with the trailer. I want to get sorted out before I either ever, whether I use it or sell it, it needs to be right. So just some of that stuff. But yeah, I've got all the equipment. I've sold a lot of the Ducati parts and things from the last season. I still got a full-blown Superbike engine if anybody wants one. But
Someone might want that.
yeah, but I've got I've got everything, honestly. Like I could almost restart, with a partner if it came down to it, but no plans for that.
When I've watched you at the races that you've been able to race a Superbike as well, even that seems I kind of see a different Kyle Wyman with that as well, because you're getting to ride a Superbike that's not yours, that you're not responsible for. Well, you're responsible for it, but you know what I mean? You're not a team owner in that aspect. And that seems to have even helped you as a Superbike racer, even though it's been part-time.
Yeah, obviously 100%. I mean, when I finally decided last winter to not continue in Superbike, it felt like I'd just given up on everything I've been working for, and I was like, man, I could have raced my last Superbike race. And that was something I had to face. But in the light of, the Harley Davidson program and everything it was going to be, I could have never thought that I would only miss one round of Superbike at COTA. And I literally watched through the fence there, and I was like, I was really missing out because I was not racing anything that weekend, but I was there, that I would only miss one and I'd be back on one in Atlanta and I'd be on the podium first time out on someone else's motorcycle. And that was a very gratifying result, because it really helped secure my mind, and just knowing that I'm on the right path still. It really made me feel like, yeah, this was the right decision, because it opened me up to that opportunity to do that. And it's pretty cool to get the first, BMW podium on that M1000 and for that team and all that, because they're going to be doing great things in the future. And it's kind of cool to be a part of the history of that coming up. But yeah, it was a struggle last winter, realizing I'm not racing Superbike, but man, you just never know what can happen. You never know what's kind of next for you. And luckily I was prepared enough in that situation to take that opportunity and have some fun with it.
Kyle, let's talk about that day and that weekend a little bit, because, all of us that follow you closely, and certainly you, will never forget the second place finish you got at New Jersey. Tony Elias and all those guys, and damn near won the race. So that was incredible. And then you come into Road Atlanta last year, and PJ Jacobsen's under the weather. So you're like, hold my beer, and you get on the podium, and it was emotional for you. And it was on a team that your brother was on. And how did that come about? Did the fact that Travis was on that team have any influence? Because I do know from talking to a couple of the principals of that team that they were talking to a couple of different riders. I think you made you absolutely you were in the window. You were there. And you made it pretty well known. But did you have to aggressively seek that? Did it have anything to do with, your relative on the team that influenced it at all? Was it somebody else that refused it? And I'm not trying to discredit any of this, Kyle. I just wanted to understand the process and how quickly you have to make a decision on something like that.
No, it was a weird one, because I mean, I had finished setup day. I'm back in my rig. It's like 7:00 at night. And Scott Jensen texts me, "Hey, are you still at the track?" I'm like, okay, there's only one reason why, like, somebody else on a different team who's busy doing their own thing, getting ready for the weekend, would be texting me, and something happened. So I go down there and they're asking if I would be willing to ride the Superbike. And I'm like, holy crap. I mean, first practice is in like 14 hours, right? It was very, very last minute, but I'm there. I got my Superbike license, of course, renewed that. And yeah, that was it. I mean, well, that wasn't really it. I talked to Harley, and we were in a dire situation with that because we got smoked at Daytona. We really put in a lot of effort between Daytona and Atlanta to make good on that and get a win. And it was a big risk for me to say yes to doing that, obviously. But it worked out great. I won the race for Harley, and then immediately after that got that podium on the BMW. But no, I just came up last minute, literally the night before, and I was super nervous saying yes to it. I felt like I was jeopardizing everything, but sometimes you just got to kind of take that risk. And for me, luckily, it worked out.
What did the bike feel like? Did it feel pretty instantly comfortable for you, or did you? Sometimes you can get on a bike, obviously, and go, "Oh man, this just doesn't feel right to me." But it must have felt somewhat good for you.
It took some time. I was not comfortable at first. Friday was tough. Saturday was a little better, but Sunday was great. I mean, actually, because we had like a red flag and a delay and a few things happen, I got like a ton of sighting laps, which is pretty strange for a race, like to have so many outs and ins and outs and ins. And I don't know, for me going back and forth between the two bikes on Sunday, all those sighting laps gave me a really good opportunity to just kind of feel the bike once more and feel the changes that Scotty put in it. And man, we worked really well together. I really appreciate Scott Jensen and what his process and the way he does things, because he truly has it a good handle on the crew chief role and listening and leading as well. Like, he did a phenomenal job to get me comfortable by Sunday to do what we did, the whole team. I mean, they're a great group of guys, and it's very easy to see why they're having such success with Scott leading the charge for PJ.
Yeah, Kyle, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to mention that, and I only got this insight from watching Pressure to Rise. But I love the episode with you in Superbike with Scott Jensen, because he's a former rider, but he's been a crew guy for a while. He's worked on a few teams, and a lot of times the chemistry and the communication you'll see between a rider and a crew chief can be things like hand gestures. It can be a little bit more specific in terms of things. You're kind of a hybrid. You understand things like rebound damping and compression and ride height. So you can talk technically about that. You just don't come in and go, it feels kind of weird in this corner or something. But I noticed the way you instantly kind of were able to almost communicate without actually articulating all that specific stuff. But he would ask you something and you would say something, and it was like, wow, these guys are already clicking, and it's just early on. And that came out in that weekend. I think that underscores what you're talking about, right?
No, it for sure does. I mean, it was very difficult for me to verbalize what I was feeling because it was so new and like you're so under the gun. Like, you go out first practice and you feel like you have no time to figure this out. And it's really difficult to sift through all the things you're feeling and provide something that's valuable to the crew chief to make a change. But as the more laps I got, the more honed in and focused on the bike I could be to provide that feedback. But he really he's a great communicator, and he really can get the info out of you. And yeah, very focused individual.
All right, one last question on the Superbike. It's no surprise, or there's no question that Cameron Beaubier is going to be signing a contract with that team to race that BMW in the 2023 Medallia Superbike Championship. How far you've ridden the bike? How far off are they from having a Cameron Beaubier run at the very front, if not the top three? Obviously, you've been in the top three, so you kind of know, but how close is that bike with Cameron on it to being able to run with Gagne and Peterson and Scholz and whoever ends up on that Ducati?
I mean, I think it's ready to go now. I think they're pretty damn close. The bike was definitely early on, round 2, when I rode it in Atlanta. It's definitely, the bike has come a long way since then. I don't have a good indication of how the bike is now, even though I raced for them at Barber at the last round as a third entry. That bike was definitely a little bit of a hybrid super bike. It was not even close to what I raced in Atlanta earlier in the year, really. So I don't have like a really good idea of where they're at now from a personal standpoint riding it. But having seen the success in the last few rounds, those guys are really onto something. And I think, you know, you bring Beaubier back into the mix, they're going to be a weapon straight out of the gate. I truly believe that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the baggers. You mentioned earlier that having the more rounds makes it a more serious championship than just having 7 races. I mean, a lot of that comes from with 7 races, as your season showed, you can win a bunch of races, but if you have an issue, it's pretty difficult to make up all those points. With the extra races, that's not necessarily the thing anymore. Are we going to see different racing, or do you think? I mean, it's not like everyone's not trying as hard as they can every lap anyway, but maybe there'll be a little different mentality.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that different. I think that everybody's way too fired up to win for it to the mentality to really shift. But you never know. I mean, depends what kind of situation you're in. You know, if you got a points lead and you got to protect it, you know, the mentality can change, but it's easy to turn that into a slippery slope. So, you know, for me, I want to just take it race by race. And, you know, we got to have a strong Daytona this year. We got to come out swinging. We got to do better than last year. But I think we're in pretty good shape for the rest of the rounds. And I'm excited to go to COTA on the baggers. I think that'll be pretty awesome. So a lot of things to look forward to.
Man, Kyle, this King of the Baggers Championship, though, it's evolved so much. I mean, you think back to the first year, it was one race at Laguna Seca, and you know the bikes were quite different than they are now, obviously. But even when we're working on social media, and I was thinking we did a thing the other day about Tyler O'Hara, and he, you know, I put down he technically he's won 2 King of the Bagger championships, but you know one of them was one race at Laguna. Then you know after that it's evolved into you know more rounds, then more rounds. And this next year, finally, we're going to have rounds that are going to have a couple of races for you guys. So it's all not just other than the challenge leading up to that one race. And like Paul said, I mean, I'm not saying necessarily, I guess it's a little bit more room for error, but did you realize, without going into too much detail about that disappointment last year, just you were sunk. I mean, it just was the timing of the situation. And if there were more rounds and more races, it wouldn't have been a situation like that. That had to be hard to deal with. But going forward, I'm sure you're pretty happy with how it's evolved towards this year, schedule wise. Would you say?
Yeah, it's good. You know, obviously with our specific situation last year, only scoring points in 5 of 7 races, and I didn't even look at the points total at the end. You said I was only 12 points out of the championship.
Yeah.
At the end of the year.
Yep.
So to only score, you know, in 5 of 7 races and be 12 points out of the championship, I think shows the strength that we had when we were actually running, you know. So a longer championship allows for more time to make up for issues like that, but that's no reason to let your guard down, you know. So I'm pretty motivated to, you know, keep the hammer down and also to motivate the team to do the same.
Kyle, do you this year? You've probably seen social media. You know, there's a lot of speculation about teams and riders for these teams. I mean, there's some that you've dealt with before in terms of you know Team Hammer. I mean, you've had a relationship with them. We don't know what they're doing. You know, you said you've had this. You still have some Ducati stuff. Um, have you been getting calls? Have you speculated, or is it just you can't do that, but you could do some one-offs like you did last year, or would you entertain trying to do both?
Honestly, I don't think I would entertain doing both considering the schedule this year. If you, for example, let's say we have Laguna. So baggers are at Laguna. We got our 2 races plus the Mission Challenge, I presume, will be back. So there's 2 races plus a challenge. That's 3 race starts on the Harley. And Laguna is a triple header round for Superbike. That would be absolutely gnarly to do both.
Yeah, it's a lot of racing.
It's doable the way it was last year with one race on the bagger, but it's barely doable. Like even talking to like Jensen after that round at Atlanta, he definitely wished I could have been available more during times when I was on track on the bagger to talk more or to, hey, what about this? So it definitely pulls you in multiple different directions. And I think that this time there's definitely a clear fork in the road. Like you got to pick one or the other at this point. So, I'm happy to pick baggers. I'm excited.
I mean, it speaks to what that program is too, Kyle. The fact that, there may be some guys that can jump on those bikes and just ride them for a novelty, but you're riding to win championships, to develop parts for Harley Davidson through Screaming Eagle and everything you're doing. So this you're a true factory rider in the sense of what factory riders we used to have in the days when they would quote develop bikes, and they still, some of the teams still do it in terms of parts, because I know, like, obviously Richard Stamboli has his own Attack Performance parts, but we've talked about this a bunch last year when you and I would do Q&As with some of the Harley fans, the VIPs. We would talk about, here, look at this piece on this bike. Well, that's something that you can get through Screaming Eagle, and that turnaround from racing to production with Harley Davidson has been pretty incredible. Is there more of that this year, that's street or performance parts for the fans as well that you've developed?
Yeah, there is actually some stuff coming out soon that's directly tied to what we developed, which is pretty cool to have a hand in that. And it's a big year for Harley. We got the 120th anniversary, coming out. We're going to have like a homecoming in Milwaukee in July after Laguna, and it's a huge celebration. I mean, Harley's long history it's incredible, and it's cool to have such a hand in what's coming out. And I mean, like this last week also, I had 3 Harley Davidson engineers that are also test riders out to Indy, and I'm coaching them, training them for their high speed training. So having a hand in that, like actually training some of the engineers and just working with the motor company on not just the engineering side, but the marketing side. I'm working with Willie G, Bill, and Karen Davidson on, leather designs for this coming year. And it's pretty surreal to be kind of this intertwined with everything. And it speaks to the opportunity and the reason I'm here doing it.
Well, it's amazing stuff, and I grew up with snowmobiles, Kyle. Growing up in northern New York where it's cold, and I remember when those snowmobiles used to race like at Eagle River or something. You'd see some of those race sleds, and they look hardly anything like a production snowmobile. And sometimes we'll have people that look at the baggers that you guys have, and you can still see a bagger there. Some people don't really understand why the bags are on there, but it's like, hello, that's what it is. So, but the bike has developed so much. Do you see? It's hard to predict the future with this class and these races, and I know there's always changes every year in terms of what we're throwing at you in terms of rounds, in terms of races, and some of the nuances with the challenge and stuff. But are you just kind of along for the ride in that sense, and you'll take a look at it, and you're trying to move forward all the time, and you don't really know what the end result of this is 5-10 years down the road, but you're there and going to continue to make it happen? Is that how you view it?
Yeah, definitely along for the ride. I feel like, I am solidifying a relationship with the company and, can be involved in things beyond racing if, this comes to an end someday. But yeah, I mean, every deal I've done, every situation I was in at some point in my racing career, it's like, yeah, this could last forever. And then it doesn't. Right. And this is one of those deals where having that experience, knowing things don't last forever, it's really important to enjoy it and to ride the wave. And, yesterday was a good day on the bike. At the end of the day, they're like, yeah, like go slide the thing around. We're doing some marketing stuff, go have fun, and riding a factory Harley at their private facility, 6 camera guys, like doing some of that stuff. Like really enjoy that, because someday you're going to be like looking back, man, that was those were the good old days. You know, that was when things were, that was like the peak of everything, you know, and it's important to recognize that in the moment so you can appreciate it.
Oh, Paul, I've got to bring this up to Kyle. This was the greatest thing late last night. I don't even know what time it was, but I tend to stay up too late looking at my laptop at night. And I was on Twitter, and out of the blue, some person who I didn't know who it was, and Kyle can tell us, reached out to Kyle via a tweet and basically said, "Hey, I don't know where you are, but can you come over and sign some autographs or sign an autograph for me? I'd really like to see you. This would, there's probably no chance of this happening." Sure enough, Kyle Wyman replies right back to her on Twitter, and I'm like, "Holy crap! Can you tell us what was going on there, Kyle?"
Yeah, I opened Twitter last night and I saw a tweet mention, and yeah, she says she's a employee at the proving grounds. She works there, maybe for Chrysler or something. But she noticed that we were there testing and said, before you leave, can I get an autograph? So we'll be back there today. I'll go chase her down and give her a poster off the truck or something. So yeah.
It's just an awesome anecdote of what you guys are all about, especially you, Kyle. I mean, it's just you're there for the fans, and it's an accessible paddock. You'll talk to anybody. People can ask you questions, even when they're dumb questions like the ones I ask you. And you're patient with everybody, and you create fans that way. I mean, it's just a microcosm of what we're all about. And I love seeing that, even during the off season, you were that accessible. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, back to the bike for a second. I mean, we obviously saw giant gains in lap times from the first race at Laguna Seca till the end of last year. Are we to the point where those wholesale changes are pretty much done, and it's a matter of just fine tuning like you would a super bike or any other race bike when you get to the track?
You would think the development curve is starting to flatten out at this point, but we're still making some pretty big jumps. I think that you'll start to see things slow down a bit this year. I think we're still going to go faster everywhere. There's no doubt about that, especially if we end up on the new Dunlop slicks that they came out with. I think that's going to be a big deal. But yeah, the wholesale, gains from one year to the next, I think we're going to see that start to shrink a little bit. The rules that came out for this coming year are going to start to stop that crazy development from getting out of control. They're adding rev limits for both Harley and Indian this coming year. So that's going to it's going to put a little bit of a cap, at least, on what we can do from an engine development standpoint. And there's a few other things in there, but yeah, I think that we're starting to mature the platform a little bit. So, we're not going to see 5 seconds faster next year at Road. Well, maybe because of the new surface at Road America, but it's not going to be huge like it was this year, I don't think.
With a super bike and other race bikes, it's like traction is a big thing, grip is a big thing. Is that the biggest thing on that bike, or is it still a matter of ground clearance and things like that? I mean, do you run out of grip before you run out of other stuff, or do you run out of the other stuff and you still have grip?
On corner exit, I'm running out of grip first. We run the bike so tall that we got a lot of swing arm angle, and in some cases it's actually hard to get the power to the ground, and we're not allowed to have TC or anything, so no rider aids. Super bike horsepower numbers, truly. I'm not going to say how much, but you could take a guess. And the amount of torque we're putting to the ground, getting the power to the ground, especially off a tighter corner with that much torque, is one of our challenges. But we're also still trying to find a little more ground clearance, because there's some racetracks with long radius corners that you run out of lean angle and you got a ceiling. So we're working on that too. And then you've got the with the rev limit and the minimum weight, those are pretty hard, ceilings as well. The bike being so heavy, is only so late you can go to the brakes, and it's starting to narrow in on what a bagger racer is.
So Kyle, you brought up rev limits, and I did want to ask you about that, because that surprised me a little bit. And I didn't know. I thought initially, sometimes we do rules that relate to things like helping the bikes or safety issues or whatever. So when that came out, my initial thought was, okay, the Harley is an air cooled V twin. I mean, it's got that twin cooled thing in it too, but predominantly an air cooled bike. And obviously they rev, but they don't rev that much. So I got to thinking, are these rev limits to protect the bikes from having a catastrophic failure? But you're saying, no, the rev limits we can rev higher than that rev limit. That's probably to limit the performance of the bike. Is that actually right?
Yeah, it's about trying to balance the class. It's not really like, even though we had a couple, or we had, Brainerd, we can say it, right? We had our
Right.
oil down issue. That was not an engine failure. That was, just a separate failure. The only engine that went down for us this whole year was race 2 at Daytona, when I over revved it because we were trying to do some crazy gearing to get a good run to the flag. So we put crazy gearing in it. Second gear was so short that I was just over revving the thing on back shifts, and we, stretched some or bent some push rods and, touched some hard parts inside the engine. But no, we've not had an engine failure that was significant, other than that, top end failure at Daytona. So it's more about parity. I hope that it brings a closer parity with overall top speed. I think it was pretty clear at times, that we were down in the trap speeds, to the tune of 12 miles per hour at Atlanta. We really had to work hard to try to shrink that this year. And, it's very interesting trying to balance two engines that are significantly different. The Harley engine has been around for a very, very long time. It's not a modern engine. So being twin cooled and, higher displacement, still is not enough to, to match the modern water cooled engine at a lower displacement at this point. So, hopefully, we can get similar trap speeds, and, we'll see where everything ends up. But we're going to continue working on our chassis and our powertrain to make things as good as they can be within the rules.
The other part too, I brought this up this past year during the Q&A. You'll probably remember you asking this or bringing it up, Kyle, but you mentioned that your guys are pushing like superbike level horsepower, and for the fans that understand that can figure it out. So we occasionally, you see probably when we'll post some stuff on our social media about baggers, and you'll get some people that'll, poo-poo it or whatever. Well, recently we had a guy, and you may have seen this, some guy, I'm going to call him a squid, but anyway, I think he's a street bike rider or something, but he's got an R1. And he said something like, yeah, I'll go up against those guys. I'll smoke them every time. So Kyle, this guy let's just say it's a club racing R1. And you, Kyle, on your HD Screaming Eagle Road Glide Special, off the line, who's going to win that drag race?
Drag race? I don't know. I'm not.
Come on, Kyle. They accelerate like a freight train. That's the point I'm trying to make.
So. Yeah, I mean, the first, the 0 to 60, the Harley's probably going to get it, which is crazy to think, but it probably will.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing people don't understand. They accelerate so hard off the line. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. They're long, they're heavy, so they don't wheelie, so they get off the line pretty good. But yeah, I mean, if someone wants to race me, they can look at competitor info on the Moto America website.
That's right. Exactly. But I mean, the bikes aren't slow, and I know when you guys are out there on the banking and stuff, it does feel a little bit different because you're pushing so much air. But I bet you're looking forward to getting back to Daytona again in March and getting around the oval on the bagger. But Kyle, you're not a one trick pony, and you look at what you've done at Daytona in the past. Are you going to race the Daytona 200 this year?
No, it's the same issue as, Superbike and baggers, because we have baggers, we got 2 races plus a challenge, I imagine. It'd be really tough to do both. So, No, I think just focus on baggers for Daytona. I'd love to be in the 200 again. Obviously it's super fun race that I've done well at, and I think last year was disappointing. I have had success at Daytona, having won like three XR 1200 races there, and the 200 a couple years ago. It's difficult to walk out of there empty-handed like we did last year. So yeah, I'm pretty motivated to get back and make good on that, get some redemption this year.
Okay, I've got to ask you this. You go to the races, like we already said, you've kind of got a bit of a clearer mind when you're just racing for somebody else than when you're a team owner. What about having your brothers there? Like, there's three of you, there's Cody, there's you, and there's Travis, and somebody's out of those three, somebody's always on the racetrack. Does that bring a little stress? Like if it was my brother out there, I don't have a brother, but if I did and he was out there, I would like I feel like I'm with him a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'd be worried about him or whatever. I'd probably worry about him more than I'd worry about myself. Does that come into play with three Wymans out there racing on a Moto America weekend?
Yeah, I mean it does a little bit. We're so normalized to it though that it's you don't even really think about it. But definitely the schedule has a lot more items on it that you pay attention to than if it's just you and you're just worried about what you're doing. But yeah, there were weekends where like I'm racing Superbike and baggers. Travis is racing Superbike, stock, and baggers. And Cody's racing Junior Cup and Twins Cup all at the same time. Like we have the whole schedule covered pretty much, besides super sports. So yeah, it's pretty hectic. I would say it probably weighs on my parents more than it does on us.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
So
bring up.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of stress for them, I'm sure.
And we get to see, and Sean and I do the press conferences after every race, so it seems like there's always a Wyman in there. I think one time this year I called Cody Kyle, but that's the only time I've messed that up. I've messed up plenty of other stuff, but I at least, I mean, for you on your parents' side of it, I can imagine like it triples the chance of being disappointed, but it also triples the chances of having a good weekend. Like two of you guys can suck, and if one steps it up, then it's not a bad weekend for the Wymans.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when it goes well for all of us at the same time because I think it was Atlanta this year where all of us were on the podium in the
Yes.
same
Right.
day, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like on Sunday. And for me, it was two of them, Superbike and baggers. And then Travis was on the podium in stock. Cody was on the podium or one, I think maybe in Junior Cup. But yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of go back to the rig and, line up our trophies and be like, yeah, this is cool. We've come a long way.
You're
So
like 7 year olds again.
yeah, we're like, we feel like we're back at the local dirt track race, cleaning house, it feels good.
Kyle, speaking of your brothers, I mean, you guys all have your own independent programs, except, of course, Travis is also a factory Harley Davidson rider. And like you said, he was riding a lot of different things last year. Not to give anything away, but do you know at all what their two of them are doing? I mean, will they both be in the paddock in some way this year racing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously
Well, of course,
Cody's,
Travis will. Yes. Sorry about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Travis. I think Travis is still trying to do stock in some way. Uh, I know that Cody's pretty set to go to Twins, I believe. So yeah, it's pretty set, I think. But um, yeah, I'm sure it's still a little bit early. We've got some time to see
Right.
how things shake out.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for picking me up on that mistake. I obviously misspoke in saying, of course, Travis is going to be in the paddock, but you knew what I meant. Other than baggers, is he going to do some of the other stuff? So yeah, and it looked like Cody was pointing his way towards Twins like he did last year. So that'll be great to have you guys there again. Okay, we're going to get ready to wrap up, but I got to ask you one other question. You're a noted Green Bay Packers fan. It's been a weird year for those dudes, and I mean,
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is a crazy person. Like, is this it? What's the deal? I mean, are you still thinking they're going to get there, or what? What's up?
I
Give
don't
us.
know. They're teetering. They're working on getting that, kind of QB wide receiver chemistry going. It's starting to. Christian Watson's kind of coming on strong in those last couple of weekends, but yeah, it's been a tough one for those boys. It's kind of sad to see, but as a Packers fan, you're so spoiled. Like, they always are doing well every year. They're bound to have a bad year, so not going to complain too much.
I think it's so ironic too that this year, Aaron's got that weird thumb thing. You've been a fan long enough. You remember when Favre had that weird thumb thing and he had like a stick glued to his thumb or something? What's with thumbs in these Green Bay Packers quarterbacks anyway?
I don't know. It's a different deal, man. I tune in when I can, and just been a fan since I watched them in their Super Bowls in the mid '90s when I was real little. It's just like made my mom buy me a cheese head and stuff. So yeah, it is what it is. I like watching, especially when they're doing well, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it's their year.
Nope, not their year, maybe. All right. Well, I don't mean to end it on a bad note, but it's actually got a lot going for you this coming year, Kyle. It sounds like it's going to be best year ever for your efforts with Harley Davidson, which we're really excited about. So it'll be fun to watch you. I mean, more rounds, more races this year. So more time for Kyle Wyman to be on track. And who knows, maybe there will be a couple fill-ins here and there. That's still maybe on the table. It seems like things always change in our paddock. So we wish you luck with that and everything you've got going during the off season. You're always busy with the champ school and everything else you're doing. So, thanks for taking the time to be on with us this time.
For sure. Appreciate you guys having me on. I'm going to get up to the racetrack and do some testing.
Hey, I got one more thing. When I know Sean does these Q&As with the Harley fans and you and Travis at the races, does he talk about weather and those or not at all?
Usually not.
All right.
It's not like the podcast.
Paul, the funny thing about that one is I tend to ask some technical questions, and there's one Wyman who likes the technical questions more than the other one, and that's the one that's on our podcast right now. So the other one has even said, "Hey, ask Kyle those questions," because I don't get too technical, but sometimes these fans really they're in the know on what's going on with these bikes, so we like to do that. And so Kyle's the tech guy when it comes to that, so that works out real well. But again, thanks for having us on, Kyle. Thanks for you being on with us. Well, having us on your podcast is always fun. Thank you, Kyle. It's off track. It's off track with Kyle Wyman and Paul Carruthers and Sean Bice, I guess is what it is. So, hey, so I just want to mention at the top of the show, I said, our tickets are on sale now. You can go on our website. You can click on our calendar, take your pick of where you want to go, look at the rounds that the King of the Baggers, Mission King of the Baggers Championship will be at. And for sure, go to those rounds and make sure you see Kyle. And like I said, if you had camping spots last year, you'll have them this year. And, join the show just like the rest of us, because you fans are part of it as well. So thanks for joining us on this latest episode.
Well, hey, don't forget, we got the Harley Davidson ticket package also.
Oh, tell us about
that. Yeah, you're coming out to see Baggers. Get that Harley Davidson VIP package and do a track walk with myself and Travis on Saturday. A couple other perks in there to hang out with us. So that's the way to go.
Sounds good. Thanks,
all right,
Kyle.
you guys, Kyle, have a good holiday, and please say hello to Hannah for us as well.
Yeah, say hi to Hannah.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
All right, bye-bye.